All right, the Minister of Economic Development is joining us for a conversation on the province of Nova Scotia, visions of the future economic development. After her initial comments, Mr. Tory Rushton will be the moderate speaker and question and answer for this period. So now I'd like to call upon the Honourable Tory Rushton, the Minister of Natural Resources and Renewables, to please come up and introduce our speaker this evening.
Thank you, Lacey, and thank you for having me here this evening, and welcome, and a special hello to another one of our colleagues, Elizabeth Smith. We like to say that we share the most, and you're outnumbered here, Minister Corkum-Greek, the most beautiful county in the province of Nova Scotia. Am I not right? So welcome everybody here tonight, and it's my honor and privilege to introduce to you Minister Susan Corkum-Greek, who is the MLA for the Lunenburg area. Before politics, when she was elected last summer during the election, she was into journalism and very community oriented in the Lunenburg area. And I can honestly say she brings a bubbly spirit to the legislature and the caucus area around, and certainly it's been a pleasure to get to know Minister Corkum-Greek the last several months, and I know that she shares the passion for the province of Nova Scotia that we share here in Cumberland County, and we're very honored that you were able to make the trip here tonight. I'm not going to speak too much more because apparently I'm moderating a question and answer period for you afterwards. So I'd like to turn the floor over to Minister Corkum-Greek. Thank you.
Thank you, Tory, and good evening, everyone. Bubbly spirit, that is short form for she has loose lips and sometimes speaks in a strange so-shore accent and makes references in the House to meat shields and bobbleheads and all kinds of interesting things. But no, it is truly my pleasure to be with you this evening. Look, I'm a Lunenburg girl, and I'm pretty proud of the place I come from. But walking over to this beautiful new facility here from the parking area this evening and looking across the greens to the blues out front here, I wasn't going to first of all, I'm outnumbered, as was noted by Tory. But I wasn't going to argue. I don't know who ordered the weather for this evening's festivities. It's always like this. You know what? That's the second time tonight I've been told that. And my reply was, well, that's something I'm not going to try to get off for the so-shore of Nova Scotia. It is my great privilege and blessing to have been handed the portfolio of economic development on behalf of our government, and for a multitude of reasons, one of which is that in my career leading up to this point, and I've often described myself as a bit of a Forrest Gump. So I started in journalism. I trained at the University of King's College in Halifax, and I worked nearly 20 years in community newspapers. I chose community newspapers because I still believe that those papers with that direct connection to community can help to be part of community building, throwing bouquets, hopefully when appropriate. Well, basically, the news should be unbiased, but also the ability to point and say a good thing happened in our community, and equally to say there's a challenge and a problem here, and in so doing to motivate and activate people. After I left journalism, and it was at a time my son, who is now well into adulthood, but he was young, and the classic dilemma of I don't feel I can be the journalist I want to be, and certainly not feeling I can juggle that and be the mom I want to be. And an opportunity came available at our local Board of Trade. And I was talking to folks from the Chamber of Commerce here, and so I worked a number of years in the Chamber movement, and I've remained an active volunteer in the Chamber movement, and I've then went on to work in private business, and then I got involved in an absolutely focused community economic development project called the Lunenburg Academy of Music Performance. Now, I'm not here to give you a long story about Lunenburg Academy of Music Performance, otherwise known as LAMP, but I'll give you the short form. In Lunenburg, if any of you have ever been to Lunenburg, you drive into town and there's this amazing large building up on the hill. And depending what generation you come from, the younger kids now say it looks like Hogwarts. But this grand 3-story building, which was built during a time when prosperous communities across Nova Scotia, including Amherst, made a switch. And in their success, they decided that instead of young people going directly into our factories, in my area, the fishery, in other areas of the province, the mines, that there was a value in completing your education. And they began investing in these schools. And it became known as the academy system. And over time, many of these buildings were, of course, replaced as new schools were built in communities. But the Lunenburg Academy continued to be a place of education until 2012, when a new school was built. And now you have this grand building made of wood. So it's going to continue to cost a great deal of money to simply keep it up and maintained. But it's beloved, and it's huge, and it's right there, and it's a National Historic Site, and my God, what are we going to do? Because the town owns the school. And at that moment, we had a choice. This could either become the biggest liability ever, be viewed as an endless pit into which a small tax base would funnel money to what? Paint it and look at it and celebrate its glory days? And instead, a group of people came together behind the vision of a man who wanted to start a world-class level musical finishing school in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. And on the surface, that looks about as unlikely as anything you might otherwise come up with. In 2014, LAMP opened in the Lunenburg Academy. And today, young musicians from more than 23 countries have traveled to the South Shore of Nova Scotia, and they've come from every part of Canada and many of the United States to study opera and jazz and new music with some of the world's the world's greatest authorities, greatest performers. Now, I'll tell you, I wasn't hired because of my musical acumen. In fact, my contract said, you are not allowed to hum. There's lots of people, shocking a number of people in politics who actually are really great singers. And I think Elizabeth may even be on that list herself, but I'm not one of them, let's put it that way. But I was there because I believed in what this could do for our community, and I watched my community make it happen. And so I find myself in this privileged role in economic development for our province, with this deep-seated belief that the place for government is not to helicopter in, I did see a helicopter take off before, not to helicopter in to your county and your fine communities here and tell you what you need to do. It's quite the opposite. It's to talk to you and find out what your opportunities are, because you know what your challenges are. And I know you've already spent a heck of a lot of time thinking about the ways that those opportunities can be addressed. And it is in learning those ideas and those aspirations and making them more than aspirational where we as a province will move forward. My other great privilege in joining you tonight and being in this role, and I describe myself in our first session in the legislature, again, bubbly spirit or loose lips or just naivety, joyous naivety. And I describe myself as the minister of possibilities. And one of the opposition members, Brenda McGuire, will never, ever let me forget that. But I stand by it because we are at a unique time and place in our province's history. This week and next, we have young people graduating from high schools across our province. And for the first time in practically forever, those young people, while they may choose, and they should pursue their dreams wherever their dreams take them. But for the first time, they all have opportunities, should they wish, to stay or to come back to Nova Scotia. We have opportunities like never before. I'm here tonight hoping that while I welcome questions from you, I hope maybe there may be the opportunity to pose some questions to folks in the audience to learn from all of you in your particular businesses, in your sectors, and in your communities, where the opportunities lie and how government can assist you so that collectively we can truly seize this enormous potential that our province has always held. But we are now in a position more than ever to make happen. Beyond that, I will only mention this. When I have traveled the province and talking to businesses, the commonality of a theme, and I'm going to be looking for head shakes, yay or nay, that I hear again and again it relates to the labor market. Access to labor and housing for those. So we see these opportunities in business. You will know that our government has a very ambitious target to double the population of this province by 2060 to 2 million people. And I know right now, I'm a constituency MLA, and as much as I get to walk around and talk about opportunities and possibilities as the Minister of Economic Development, I too have people in my community who come to me as individuals who are facing some pretty tough stuff right now. Again, collectively, we are in a far better position to deal with those challenges as well. And what we don't want to lose is, again, we have momentum. People are looking to and moving to this province like never before. The number one advantage that the successful jurisdictions will have in the future is access to talent. We have a lot of talented Nova Scotians, and we need to welcome the folks who will stand with us and provide the talent for jobs that we don't even know exist today. How exciting is that? So I thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you tonight. And I guess, Minister Rushton, I always tell people in my constituency, if you call me minister anything, I'll never get reelected. So that's, Tory is now a friend, and we'll call him Tory, and we'll get going with the question and answer period.
So thank you very much, Susan. Lacey, where'd Lacey go? How much time do we have here, Lacey?
Well, as long as you need.
You're the cat. You just said that to two politicians and another one sitting in the crowd. As much as we need. We're good.
15, 20 minutes.
Okay. I'm watching the time. So, any questions from the crowd? Any questions from the crowd? And while somebody's getting the gumption up, or we're putting the words in their mind, I'm just going to remind the minister of something. And if the minister would look back at the picture on the business connector, you'll see the green highlighted area of Cumberland County. And I wouldn't be doing my job, and Elizabeth kicked me in the butt if I didn't do this. But the green area highlighted is the center hub of the Maritimes. The opportunity knocks for us right here in Cumberland County. And I wanted to make sure the minister goes away and back to Halifax with that in her mind. So, first question.
The question I have is, I guess one of the biggest concerns I hear, I'm a lawyer locally in Amherst, and one of the biggest concerns I hear from small business owners that are clients is that no matter what industry they're in, they're having their biggest issue right now is the workforce, attracting and retaining talent, as you've pointed out. Just wondering from a provincial perspective, what efforts are underway at the provincial level to try to deal with that issue, because it does seem to be across every sector that I can think of that people's number one concern is finding enough staff and then keeping them.
So I'll just reiterate, just so because a couple of people in the crowd may not be able to hear. So the main question is, what can the provincial government do to assist with the major labor downfall shortage right now, province-wide? Sums it up, right? Okay.
He's a member of cabinet too. We could have just thrown it to him. It's an excellent question, and you are absolutely right. And I mentioned it sort of at the end of my comments, but did not really address it. So good on you for asking this. we have a multifaceted labor strategy, as you can imagine, with this goal to double our population to 2 million by 2060. We essentially have to be looking at, if we just do the basic math of time over the numbers we desire, we need to attract 25,000 new people a year to Nova Scotia. Now, the great thing about a business audience that I've discovered, I did see one set of lifted eyebrows here just a half a second ago. I won't point you out. But generally speaking, a business audience understands the opportunities they're in. There are some Nova Scotians, and I understand their concern when they hear that, and yet they know that there are folks having a hard time right now finding housing, particularly young Nova Scotians with a down payment and a dual income in their household who would like to buy their first house and are having an awfully hard time. But we will find ways to address that issue as well. But in terms of how do we attract, we have uptake, we now need to get momentum. We know that there are some proven areas of success. One of them is those universities within Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is the education capital of Canada, and I think sometimes we overlook that. 10 universities and our network of community colleges. And a number of universities, in particular Cape Breton University, have been extremely good at attracting international students. Now, international students are both a boon for the universities. They pay a different rate of tuition, but they've also been an incredible stream for talent and long-term for immigration into our country. They come into these institutions, CBU and others, and they have come here pursuing a career and the education to pursue that career, but they are not locked into where they leave after this moment. Now, what becomes essential is that they are, in fact, welcomed. And I recently, in my hometown paper, had to read a letter to the editor written by a young medical student who recounted his experience in my county as a person who doesn't have white skin. And I'm ashamed to have read of his experience. In a province that I think is better than that, in a province crying out for doctors and medical personnel. So I'm not going to ignore that there's the getting them here, and then there's the retention. And retention is all about welcome in so many ways. Ironically, and I'm just going to point this out, I recently met with the president of St. FX. St. FX hasn't been as ambitious on that same front. And St. FX, if any of you, are there any X rings in this room? All right, and y'all know where each other are already because they already went beep, 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 or whatever they do, right? And so St. FX has this fantastic, dedicated alumni where, an alumna is on the West Coast and their child says, oh yeah, I've got to go to X. They come to X, but chances are they're coming here very specifically for that educational experience, and then they're headed back home. It's a totally different opportunity, and we will work on winning over as many of those people as we can. But so international students, we need to bring Nova Scotians home. All those Nova Scotians who met somebody along the way and now they're living off somewhere else, perhaps their career trajectory of a time more or less required them to go elsewhere to seek the kinds of jobs and opportunities they were seeking. We need to get those folks back. But there are countries all over the world where people are desiring a different life. And Nova Scotia has a very winning proposition for them. We have good jobs, frankly, more jobs than we can fill. And in particular, in well-paying jobs, in many, many cases. And what we have to do as part of that strategy is not just the numbers, but the distribution. Because we already know, I'm not saying we'll never have to do another thing for Halifax, but Halifax has exceeded all the estimates for its growth. Halifax is going to be fine. As the provincial capital, let's face it, we're all rurals, we can all talk about them later. But, you know, Halifax is going to be okay. But 60 people, 40 people, 20 new jobs in a rural community, my God, that's big stuff. We bring an IT company into Halifax with 500 jobs. That's a very good thing. Nobody will probably notice unless it's the rental on their block and they're the coffee shop on that corner. They may notice. It is important, but we know that 15 jobs in the Wentworth Valley would be huge. That sometimes in our smallest communities, jobs going from part-time jobs to full-time jobs is a huge, huge incentive. We have invested in navigators and other positions to help us in dealing with the inquiries that we get. So again, people are well treated and see the very best of Nova Scotia from their very first inquiries here. We have a number of sectors that in particular that the sectors themselves and government has invested in over time. And I point to something like the biosector. About 2 weeks ago, I eat too much time up on answers. I know, like Mitch has given.
At least she's going to throw us out.
Yeah, she's going to throw us out. So I feel there is even more that I can give you just on that point. But aggressive plans and being delivered under the hand of one of just the brightest and most incredible ministers in our government by the name of Jill Balzer, who's also one of our youngest members of cabinet, and she genuinely is the face of the best of Nova Scotia in terms of her welcome, but equally her capacity to figure out. She has a very bright and inquisitive mind. And speaking of bright and inquisitive minds, and we do want to get to the next question, I do want to acknowledge that I have the extraordinary, all those privileges before of all the things that I get to do as Minister of Economic Development. Very high amongst everything I've mentioned, equal billing, is having one of your own from Amherst, Mitch Maltby, as my special advisor. And in addition to his personal skills, he keeps me very well apprised of things going on up here. So let's get some more questions. Sorry. You do.
You made Mitch blush. Something I'll add too is when I graduated from community college, I shared this with Don McCormick a little bit ago. I graduated as an industrial electrician. There was 20 of us in the graduating class. I was the only one that managed to stay in Nova Scotia. In the last 12 months, solely because of COVID, 3 of those have returned. There's others that do want to return. There's jobs here now, and they do want to return. And housing is one of the issues that I hear from some of my friends that are out west working. But one of the biggest things that we have had to offer was most. And that's more opportunities for the skilled trades that we announced a few weeks ago, where if you're under 30, there's going to be a proportion of your provincial income tax if you're on those skilled trades returns. So there's other programs like that we can certainly work with, but we need those conversations to come back. So thank you very much. Anybody else with a question? We do still have a few minutes, don't we, Lacey? Okay. Down and back.
But I'm not going to stop because I feel it's important. Provincial government often in our communities are making the single largest investments in our communities, often in a generation. Think schools, hospitals, even something like Access Nova Scotia. And where they are built matters tremendously. remember Premier Ham talking about the new, I think it was Ivy campus, and how important it is where the campus is to attract the students from, international and away. But many of our campuses are located, in my opinion anyway, they're great teachers, they're wonderful students, they're great facilities. But when the kids going there say, I go to school at the mall, it breaks my heart. Because that's what's happening in Amherst. It's a wonderful facility, doing wonderful things, but it could be so much more if it was located in a different location. And we can probably all think of every school that's built beside a highway that then we cannot get active transportation to. Every hospital that's on the wrong side of an overpass where people are taking their lives at risk. So I don't mean to lecture, and I am, and I apologize, because I'm in no place to lecture. I shouldn't, I should know my place. But if there was a way to take that back, and with your colleagues, and maybe change the way we invest in especially our smaller communities, because it has a tremendous impact. And if you could, if there was a comment on that or something, that would be wonderful.
So I'll just resound that just to make sure I'm on the same track so everybody can hear it. Collaboration when there's investment in rural communities. Collaboration with the developer, planner of the local municipalities, am I on track there? And an open dialogue. It's all yours.
Once again, I don't want to get in your way, Minister. So let me say this. I say this, I'm not going to try to get partisan points for our government over others, but I want to let you know that though we may sometimes seem too slow to act, and maybe our skulls are just so thick, but this issue didn't exactly fall on deaf ears. Because I have heard comments in relation to that phenomena, expressed in a slightly different way, but the same phenomena, as part of our government's review of our agencies, offices, and crown corporations. And some of you may be aware, and for gosh sake, I don't hold it against you if you haven't, because that, a government reviewing its agencies isn't exactly the most sexiest headline on the evening news. But it was a commitment very early on in our government to conduct, in the first months of our government, this review. And that process and the decisions stemming from it will be revealed very soon. And I hate to, if I was writing this on Facebook, I'd be accused of, I think they call it vague booking. So I feel there are developments very shortly ahead that will help to speak to, because you hit an absolutely spot on point. That sometimes it's not uncommon for a project to have multiple layers of government as funding partners, but sometimes we really fail to work together in spite of relationships that we all try to build and work on. Once the sites are selected and you're locked and loaded, then it becomes really super difficult to make changes. So it's really very, very important. And I do look forward, apologies that I can't be more specific, but in some of the major changes that will come to help address just that sort of issue.
Time for one more question, if there's any out there. Go ahead. Arm wrestle for it. Let's see it. Go ahead.
I'll answer.
You stood up first. Go ahead.
You can do both.
I read in the news how in Spring Hill, they estimated there's about 36 either billion or trillion cubic meters of natural gas available to be developed, but it would have to be done through fracking. Now that there's a war in Ukraine and major international need for natural gas and oil, has the government reassessed its decision and decided to try to convince the federal government to develop this natural gas and liquefy it and export it? I realize the main problem in Canada is the federal government is more concerned about the ecology of mosquitoes and woodpeckers than it is about people's needs. But are there any plans on reassessing the natural gas deposit in Spring Hill and developing
as you were.
So the natural gas that the county sits on, has there been any outlook whether the government's going to assess that and assist with what's going on worldwide? Correct?
Well, my understanding is that they decided to not develop it. I'm asking,
Okay.
because of the current international need for natural gas due to the war in Ukraine caused by Russia, are there any plans on reassessing it and saying, let's go ahead and develop
Okay.
and export and ship out this natural gas?
Develop and export it. You go first. We'll see if you get it right.
I'm not going to get it right. I'm going to defer very quickly to Minister Rushton as the Minister of Natural Resources and Renewables. So I'm going to let him answer that question. But what I can tell you is I sometimes look across the table at you, Tory, and I think, man, he's swamped right now. Because there are a great number of very real energy projects in this province. And you're right that the war in Ukraine and the situation in Ukraine makes them not just timely but urgent to pursue. But no, I'm stick handling this off to you, Mr. Rushton, so that they get the right information and I don't misspeak.
So I'm not the guest speaker here tonight, so we'll go to the next question. No, but seriously, so we have done some trade missions through the UK and European commodities. They're actually not asking our sector or our group right now for the natural gas. So as it stands right now, there's still a provincial moratorium on fracking. What they have asked us for is one, biomass, which our county can actually produce. So there's actually discussions and issues in and around how to export that out of the province to actually accept it into the Europe market. So those have always existed, but biomass is one of the things that are being asked for us to supply. The other thing that's being asked for us to be supply, because the federal government hasn't recognized it yet, but Nova Scotia is actually going to be a hub for green hydrogen. And many businesses knock at my door on a regular basis, and I know they knock on the Minister of Economic Development's door as well. Nova Scotia will be a hub for green hydrogen, and that is what the UK market is asking us to get off our butts and start producing. So we actually introduced a new assistant deputy minister into the bureaucracy of it. Dave McGregor has actually joined government, and his sole focus is what can we produce in the province of Nova Scotia in a timely manner to not make us necessarily the next Alberta of Canada, but there's some companies that are knocking on our door in the province of Nova Scotia that's saying we could be the next Saudi Arabia when it comes to green hydrogen. It's huge, and that's one of the things my department are actually looking on. Not to buck the answer, but they're not actually asking us to do fracking where 3 years ago, they were knocking at the door asking us to do that. They're not actually asking us to do that right now. They're wanting something else for the future vision of it. So, one more question, Lacey? There was only one more person that raised a hand. Quickly.
Awesome. Super easy question. I'm Justin. I'm the business development officer with CBDC. One of the challenges the people that come in to see me looking to start a business is that they don't have a place to start it. So I'm looking to get an answer regarding how the uptake has been on the recent sale of provincial lands to the communities for people to bid on, and whether there's plans to release more provincially owned lands for future development for entrepreneurs.
So are you referring, so we want, again, coming into government, one of our commitments was to do a survey of available lands, which has been completed, and you may know, and I must say I'm not familiar with how many parcels became available up this way, but my understanding, absolutely there will be more. And insofar as I'm aware, and I must admit this is an area where I paid better attention to my end of the map, but I've certainly seen in my area robust interest in the parcels that have been made available to date, and perhaps Tory can speak more specifically here. But on the issue of more of those lands becoming available, that is a definite yes.
Yeah, it is. There were some released in Cumberland County. The specifics haven't been released to Cabinet as of yet, but I do know from speaking with some developers there is interest in the lands that were released in Cumberland County. And I can echo the comment. Every department was asked, like, do a survey of what lands you're responsible for. And if they're available for housing, we need to make them available for housing and not just sit on it and sort of have the protection of each department with it. We need to make it available for Nova Scotians. So I'm going to give the last thank you to the minister, but thank everybody for taking part and welcoming the minister to the most beautiful area of Nova Scotia. I'll say it again.